Claire. There we go. So nice again to have you for Sports for Democracy. Now, Leslie and Claire, what have you had? And I'll throw it back to you now to officially introduce yourselves. Tell us a bit more about the Wonder Future, Lunch for Democracy, and what you have for us today. Any person, dive right in and let's get the ball rolling.
Thank you, Peter. And can I just say that I loved hearing all of the reflections from everyone that you have there. I think if some of our politicians today took the approaches that you've talked about in terms of accepting different perspectives and reflecting on differences and co-creating solutions, we might be in some better places. So just really appreciated all of that. I'm Leslie Ann. I live in Washington, D.C., but I also return home to the UK on a pretty regular basis. And I co-founded Wonderfuture with Claire and Lunch for Democracy. And Claire's going to talk a lot more about what we do, but just briefly, our vision is to create a movement whereby young people can come together for dialogue and then move to a position where their voices are amplified through radio, through TV, through podcasts, to the point where they're then able to engage in policy making around the decisions that are going to affect their futures. And at a time when there is so much geopolitical uncertainty and conflict and economic instability, it is easy to get very depressed. And the last 2 years, since Claire and I have been doing Lunch for Democracy, has been a cause for massive optimism. Because what we're seeing with the young people that we engage with is that they may feel disillusioned with the current system, but they do have solutions, they do have ideas, they do have the energy to change that narrative and to create something that's way more optimistic. So I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to hear from you all today, and I'll hand it over to Claire, who will tell you a bit more about what we do.
Thank you, Leslie Ann. Yes, so I'm Claire, and as Leslie Ann said, I co-founded this amazing initiative for people around the world, and every day we are amazed by the potential and the ideas that come to us, and we are very hopeful about the future.
Fine, guys. Don't worry.
Those comments you made, the feedback, as Leslie Ann said, would be brilliant for some of our politicians, but also for the people who lead businesses, that lead parts of our community. The things that really stuck with me, pushing forward, even when there isn't an apparent plan, just keep moving forward. It's about trial and error. And the one that struck me most was the idea of humility, of not putting other people's ideas down, and understanding there are different ways and different approaches. And if more of our leaders, more of our politicians stopped and adopted that, I think we might be in a better place. So there were some fantastic learnings from your session earlier today. So, Wonderfuture is our organization, and what we do, we offer spaces to explore the world that we'd like to live in through conversations, events, research, policy development, and reports. We work with all sorts of people across the world of all different backgrounds and ages, but we do focus on young people. Lunch for Democracy and Sport for Democracy is sort of part of this. But what we do is we're trying to look at civic education, skills development, to give you that hope and belonging to the world, and that you have a right and a voice within our society, and how you can make sure that your voice is heard. We're trying to build a global youth community. It's a movement for the future of democracy. We learn from each other, and it's as much about participation as it is about getting our voice across. And there is an awful lot that we around the world can be learning about participatory decision making from the communities across Africa, and how some of those communities have approached problem solving, overcoming challenges, decision making, and how we decide laws and rules around how we live. So this initiative was launched in the summer of 2024 in the UK and in the US. We're now on 4 continents. Really simple premise. We sit down to people whether everybody has an equal voice. It's an opportunity to speak, and it's usually over a shared meal. So if you haven't been given something to eat there, I'm afraid you've missed out on our basic lunch for democracy. But at this Sport for Democracy, that's okay. The ability that we've had to grow so quickly and to reach 4 continents in just a couple of years is because of amazing partner organisations like the Global Youth Forum that you're working with today. And they have helped us to host events in schools, universities, countries all around the world. And as Lesley-Anne said, the young people that these organisations and that we've worked with not only come to our events, but then are empowered to host their own events, to go and host radio shows, to be able to talk to those in powers, to approach politicians and to question the decisions that are being made about you and on your behalf. What we want to do, though, is really listen and validate and encourage you to talk and to feel that you are part of the decisions. And so what we do is we also have a survey, and we've pulled together the thoughts and the opinions of people all over the world, and we found a few key things have come out, whether you're in San Diego, whether you're in London, whether you are in Mombasa, or even in Kathmandu in Nepal. We hear the same things come through, and that's that we hear that young people have a really strong desire for political participation, to get involved in those decisions, that there's really low trust in the elites, the powerful, the political systems. Wherever you are in the world, people just don't trust. There is a very high awareness of the inequality that exists, structural and day to day. And you've got a very sophisticated understanding of media and power and the representation or lack of representation. And there's a demand for more education, more voice and more roots to be able to influence those decisions. We also hear how committed people are to their local community. And that's why this School for Democracy initiative has been amazing, because we pulled together the world's favourite game. I'm an Arsenal supporter, as I believe Peter is. I don't know about the rest of you guys there, but it's a good season for us. We'll keep your fingers crossed. But we bring together football, sport, where you can have fun. As Timothy said, you know, what you can do when you're having fun getting through problems. We have an opportunity here to create impact in our local community. And we're also increasing our knowledge about, you know, those structures and the issues around them. And part of this process with the Sport for Democracy is we're going to be looking at the SDGs, which is what this wonderful tournament is aligned with. And we at Lunch for Democracy have chosen the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal from the UN. We've chosen SDG number 16 as ours. And that is about peace, justice and strong institutions. And it's about focusing on building the kinds of peaceful, inclusive societies that will enable justice for everyone and institutions that we can rely on and trust. Now, the aim is to do this by 2030. And we haven't necessarily as a world been that successful so far. Okay, where are we with all of this? Well, you know, in terms of the rule of law and safety, just over half, 57% of the world's population is living outside of the rule of law. That means that they're not protected by the law. 5 billion people around the world are struggling to access any justice or fundamental rights. Your violent conflict has increased. It's continued to increase. In 2022, it increased by 50% on the last year. And since then, conflict has just got worse wherever you are. We're seeing over 100 million people back in 22 had been displaced, forcibly moved from where they live. And that was a record high as well. And now when we see the wars that are happening in the Middle East, we're seeing some of the things that are happening in the Americas, we've seen places like Ukraine and Europe, this number has just grown and gotten worse. But with less than half of the population having any access to justice, they're not able to report or trust the police in terms of reporting that. There is a massive gap in who has trust and access to law, to protection, and who doesn't. And to add to that, there's like almost 1 billion people, 850 million people worldwide, still don't have any legal identity. They're not recognized. They haven't got a record that says you belong to this place. And that's like 25% of children under 5 in the world are not registered as having any belonging anywhere. Now, migration keeps rising and these conflicts keep rising. We're going to see that this is really hindering people's ability to access basic services. If you aren't registered, how do you get access to health? If you're not registered, how do you get a job? If you're not registered, how do you vote for the politicians that you might trust or the institutions that might give you protection in the future? And that's before we look at the issue around corruption, which is something like 20% of the people in the world had to bribe a police person to be able to get any kind of justice. Now, there is some good news in all of this, okay? And that is that Africa actually have made the most progress. So where you're sitting today has made better progress than where I'm sitting and where Leslie Ann is sitting and where some of our other youth community are around the world. And by 2030, Africa is going to be home to 42% of the world's youth. That's nearly half the youth in the world. Half of the world's young people are going to be African by 2050. So the potential for where you are today, for the young people that you're sitting with, to actually lead the world, not just in this SDG, but in all of the SDGs, and building the kind of institutions that will make sure that there's more equality, more inclusion, more opportunity for everyone. Really, you're sitting in the place where that can happen. And as you think about that, and I think about the kind of institutions and the systems, the structures that we need in place to do that, there's one thing that will underpin it, and that will be trust. And so there's a question that I would like you to think about as you come away from this, maybe in the session afterwards or this evening, and that is about what makes people trust people in power or not trust the people in power? And can democracy even function without trust? And then I'd ask you to think about your experiences within your home community, within your country, within your travels around the world, and think, what do you want from a government? Who do you see as being trustworthy? How can you be safe and act as a citizen if you don't have trust? And how can you all work together to create a world which is more trustworthy and where we have more trust? So on that note, I'll take a whirlwind tour of what we do and some ideas around the SDGs and sort of some big questions for you to take away. I'm going to pass back to Peter, who can maybe unpick some of that, and we can hear a bit more about what you all think. Thank you.
Right. I think there is a lot to digest there, Claire. Are you able to hear me?
Probably.
Yeah. And I know I want to get the audience into this group, but now you've touched something that is really, really interesting. I know you sit in UK, and people who are like in Africa think like UK or US are like doing like really, really well. But you brought a point where you said Africa, where we are all sitting, we are doing like really, really well in terms of other things. Tim, I know you are sitting here and you are smiling as well. Maybe other guests can give you the audience and probably your perspective, because Tim is here in Africa, and Tim did say this is your fourth time, third time. Do you want to pass the mic to Tim? So, Tim, can we, on what Claire have said, can you just take, say, 1 or 2 minutes to sum that up, and then we get the audience, like the students. I know they've come here, they've gone to Amboseli. They were talking to me about the market the other day. They bought a goat, they've roasted the goat, and they've done a lot of things. So there are different perspective of things might be like something keen to listen to. Tim, over to you.
Yeah, so much to think about just in that. When I first think about the SDG, about institutions, the first thing I think about is the process that we all had to go through to actually get the visa to come here, the passport that we had to go through, and then the process of actually going through that immigration when we travel internationally. And one of those things is you put a lot of trust in the government to do the right thing in order for us to get here. And it's important for those institutions to function fairly and honestly and openly for us to feel safe to be able to travel, for us to be able to create a community. If that trust is not there, then fewer people are going to want to travel internationally. And then when it comes to economics, the same idea. And the most amazing thing about going to the market is that market, while we came there once a week, we could have gone back 1,000 years. And the same issue applied. It has to do with fairness. Is that someone has something that you want, and you have to create a relationship of trust that the price that is going to be given is good for both. Someone doesn't get a loss and someone gets something out of it, but they all want to return that next week for the same thing. So I really saw the elements of all the economics courses, all the lessons you guys learned were actually there in that market here. So I really, really enjoyed that.
All right. That is a perspective from Tim. So Claire, if I did not add on anything, then you have something from Tim. But now, because this still confirm if you can hear me, because we are like in the middle of a forest, so sometimes you can disappear. Are you still able to hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, cool. So I want to get to the audience now. Some of them know a bit about the Sustainable Development Goals. But I want you guys, I got a sticky note somewhere. It will be passed by any of my team behind here. But I want to ask them one question where they tell us their favorite Sustainable Development Goal and why. And based on what they've done since they got here, what have they seen in relation to their SDG? And once they tell us the SDG, I know Leslie and Claire, you got some really, really exciting questions for us. We have, say, the next 20 to 25 minutes to pick as many questions as we can, respond to those until we get to probably closer to the end of it. So, if you get yours and you have your SDG ready, you put your hand up with your mic, you tell us that SDG and why you are passionate about it. You are allowed to Google, by the way. We do not want you to like feel stressed. Get your phone, Google the SDGs, pick your favorite, and tell us why it is your favorite. So you say SDG 1, for example, why you are passionate about it, and then Leslie and Claire have some hidden agenda for us on how we can probably use that to digest a topic for today. And I know I did ask them, by the way, Leslie and Claire, their favorite sport. Most, I can say, without fear or favor, most of them love the football. Only that they did not score the goals when we had like our good goals. Others did dodgeball, others table tennis, others were talking about golf. So nearly everybody on here had like their favorite sport, if you see what I mean. So I just love to hear. In fact, I'm tempted even to change the question, but let me not change it for now. So guys, let's shift it a little bit. Your SDG, favorite sport, and why that SDG? Go for it.
My name is Leah. The SDG that I chose was number 4, quality education. My favorite sport, I really like watching ice skating, especially with the Olympics recently. And I thought number 4 was important because sometimes when we go outside the center and like walk or like drive around, we see like little kids and they're going to school or like they're coming back from school. And I really like how, and also my Chosen Vessels leader, Jessica, told us about like how more kids were able to go to school after they started moving the water production closer. So I think it's really good that these kids are now able to get like more time to do education and learn because it gives them more opportunities to pursue what they want and to like
So I'll still stick with you, but then after you is then there. So I'll still stick there, but hold the mic. I'm sure Claire and Leslie you had is SDG 4. And there is a follow-up question up here. Leslie or Claire, dive right in. So we are still engaging you for a while. So Leslie, jump on it.
Well, I don't have the questions in front of me.
I
Peter.
do.
Oh, go ahead then, Claire. I was going to make one up on the spot.
Oh, well, you? So do you want to make one up or do you want me to? Okay. So, Michael, that was a really good SDG is about education because it opens up for everything else. So the question I'd ask you though is, does school prepare you for real life?
I think in some ways it does.
Close up, Mike.
Some ways it does and doesn't. And I think in the ways that it does, it teaches you like interactions between your students and peers. And that's a really important thing. And it also gives you the material to um, like kind of be able to choose where you stand in the world because through the education you can choose where you want to go and because you have the freedom to do so after you know how to wield that education as your tool.
Yeah. Okay. So, Claire, do you have something to add in 30 seconds before I jump on to the next one? But that was like a really comprehensive answer. So, what do you think?
I thought it was great. And yeah, what school does, it's not so much the education perhaps as how it prepares you to interact with other people. It's like a miniature version of society. And I thought that was a really, really good point. But moving from that, just quickly, one more thing on this. If you could change one thing about education, what would it be and who should decide that?
Um, I think so I'm Claire also. I'm Leah's
Hi,
sister.
Claire.
But one thing I would personally change about education is the accessibility and just the resources too. I often feel that even although in the United States there's a lot of efforts to further education for those who don't really have the resources to, there can be a lot of progress done even in the US and across the world. I think accessibility is so important and just giving everyone the chance to explore and learn is so important. So I think that is the one thing I really want to change and just yeah, I think that's the main point.
Right.
That's a great answer. It's a great answer. And that helps us with other SDGs like inequality and also about our systems and institutions. So brilliant answer. Thank you.
I get to the second person. They answer the same question was there. So they tell us their favorite SDG, their sport, and why that SDG. So I get to the second person. Maybe Leslie, maybe you are ready with your question now. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Colleen, and the SDG I chose was number 10, reduced inequalities. Number 10?
Number 10.
Yes,
Yeah,
reduced inequalities.
Yeah.
And my favorite sport is swimming because I just like being in the water, especially when it's hot outside. It's really refreshing. But also going back to SDG, why I chose number 10 was because I feel like reducing inequalities is kind of the key that unlocks to more opportunities, especially when inequalities such as racism and sexism are institutionalized. And when it becomes institutionalized, that's when it really creates barriers for people, especially. And I feel like once we reduce them, then more education, more opportunities, more jobs, more ways to flourish in life are more open, I guess I could say. So that's why I chose number 10.
All right. So Leslie, we got number 10. What's the hidden question beyond number 10? So stay on. You don't always pass it on to someone, but wait for the next question that might come. We call that the scorecard. Let's find out. Leslie, go for it.
So in a way, you've started to answer the question, which is what does a fair society look like? And so maybe you could just say a little bit more about what are the characteristics that create fairness in a society?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I think fairness in a society is, I think really ties into what number 10 is, with reduced inequalities. And I feel like that when we have these prejudices that
Oh, I just lost sound there.
Yeah, likewise. Peter, if you can hear us, we can't. We've got no audio coming through.
green. Hello?
Yeah,
Yes,
now
you're
we can
back.
hear you. Yeah,
Okay, now you can hear me.
Now, can you hear her?
I
Can you hear
can now. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like it really goes back to number 10 with reduced inequalities because I feel like when we have irrational prejudices that just don't make sense and they don't have any real logic behind it, that's when we have these unnecessary obstacles to individuals, right? So I feel like SDG number 10 is also a key to making a more fair society. Um, and I think that that's a way to open up more opportunities.
All right. So she's just done explaining. So Leslie, add on if you like.
Yeah, so you've talked about equal opportunities. Do you think it's also about creating equal outcomes?
equal outcomes.
They're still thinking. They're still thinking. There is a team thinking going on here.
I feel like that will stunt growth, personally. Oh, do you want to take it?
So in terms of outcomes, I mean, in some cases, depending on where you are in the world, you're given the same opportunity. But even now, between men and women, like wage gaps are still occurring. And so you may put the same amount of work as a man, and the woman may work the same, but you're not experiencing the same outcome. And so in terms of that, I think we could still really work on that. And even though we have opportunities, just creating a way to have the same amount of effort to put in and have the same results is something that we should really work on.
All right. I think there is a battling here. I have like 3 hands up all at the same time. So I will go back and then I come back to you to finish and then we go back. I know we are just like in the next 15 minutes, we should be winding up. So yeah.
I just wanted to add on to Ari's answer that a lot of the times the reason why equal outcomes are not don't happen is because of the environment that really, or the system that really constructs or has in a way almost frozen that these outcomes cannot be equal. But I feel like in a way that apart from the equal opportunities, providing equal outcomes is it's a harder challenge that we should take on, breaking down the systems that are running a lot of the societal like just inequalities, not just for opportunities but for the outcomes. So when people have the equal opportunities, that they can achieve the equal outcomes. So I think that is one point that I wanted to make.
All right. So with that, Claire and Leslie, let me pass it to I'll come back to you shortly, but if we pass it back, I can't remember all the names though, but there is a lady as well back there. Tell us your favorite sport, probably it's soccer. Your favorite SDG, and then a prompt, the scorecard will come your way. Go for it.
Okay, does it work?
Are you able to?
Yeah. So my name is Sona Minocha. I would say that my favorite sport is actually golf because I play that back at home. So I love doing that. And then for the SDG, I chose number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. And I'm really reflecting, especially on my trip here in Kenya. And what I've learned is that when people, especially here in the Maasai community, when they have access to these resources, basic resources, clean water, healthy foods, less disease, they are able to thrive and they're able to reach more opportunities. So what we've viewed here is the idea that, mothers are not having to walk hours and miles to obtain, not even clean water for their families. So that's a really hard. They've been able to, with the help of MCV and with the help of other organizations, been able to obtain water sources from underground that really allow them to take time out of their day to do other things, be a mother to their children, support them in that way, and not having to spend countless hours in physical pain to travel this far distances. And this also enables their children to live better lives, attend school, and live longer, especially because their water is healthier. So not only here but in other communities, I've been some of my heritage is from India, so I've been there and I've also witnessed this, and I find it not only sad but very important that we need to tackle this, and we need to make sure that water is accessible and safe for everyone so they can live longer and then have the strength to attend school and really change their lives for the better and the lives of their families and the society in general.
All right, that was SDG 6, and from morning they've been working on water, connecting water at my chosen vessel. That is their favorite SDG, and I think I do have a ball somewhere close to me that talks about clean water and sanitation. That is SDG 6.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, anybody with any prompt there, either Claire or anything to counter that, and then Ethan, we come to you, and then probably by that time we should be like almost winding up with something. So, question for that lady up there.
Look, yes, I'm just that was a fantastic SDG to bring in, because it's the basis of everything, isn't it? We talk about all the other stuff, but if you haven't got access to that basic resource of water, or if you're having to fight every day to be able to collect your water, all that time that it takes, or the illnesses and diseases if you don't have clean water, everything else is so much more difficult. So I think that was a really brilliant one to bring in. And it leads us to the question, which is, should access to clean water be a guaranteed right everywhere?
My opinion is yes, because it is a founding principle of how we live our lives. If you don't have water, you cannot live. It's a principle that's rooted in science. So it should be a basic right, and governments should work towards offering their citizens the best possible access to this water, because, without it, then who are you governing? There are no people to be there because they do not have access to a resource that allows them to live. So that is my opinion.
All right. I think that is exciting. I would love to really have that for like a whole day conversation, but I'd love to bring Ethan into this one, because Ethan spoke to me yesterday about his initiative where he's getting the local communities to, he's training local communities using AI to translate the languages, and the people within the local communities can use that app to locate where water is, where probably grass is in their own languages. So Ethan, tell us your favorite sport, your SDGs, and then we will take it from there.
All right. Thank you. And my name is Ethan, and my favorite sport is tennis. I play it back home, so it's kind of a fun activity for me. And the SDG I chose was SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And the reason I chose it was because, and Peter kind of talked about it already. It's just kind of basing it on the framework of this trip. I feel like I've a lot of efforts that or goals you might want to work towards with indigenous communities like the Maasai, like cultural preservation and climate equality, is kind of requires the proper infrastructure. And so I really think that infrastructure, it's a pretty elastic term, but regardless of however you want to define it, it's kind of it's a foundational necessity. So for really anything that you want to work towards. So I just wanted to underpin that by talking about SDG number 9.
Right. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure, number 9. Who is going to counter that with a scorecard? They we are scoring for Sports for Democracy, Score for Democracy. Let's hear. Leslie or Claire, dive in.
Yeah, so I'll ask the first question. Who do you think benefits from innovation and technology?
I think that innovation and technology can really benefit everyone involved, and people on the receiving end as well. And I think that its breadth and its reach of influence is really just defined by how you deploy that type of innovation and technology and the people behind it. So it all comes down to the people involved, but I think that technology has the capacity to benefit everyone.
And so yes, that's a great answer, but I just ask as a follow-up, how do we ensure that people aren't left behind? I mean, we hear about the digital divide. We're seeing the way that AI is being used, exponentially across the world. But how do we ensure that people are not left behind? For example, where you don't have, reliable bandwidth, internet connection, infrastructure that's needed to support innovation and technology. So that follow-up question is, how do we ensure people are not left behind?
And I think my answer to that question kind of revolves around something Mr. Stiven introduced me to through an organization he does work for called Sister Cities International. And that's really the concept of interpersonal diplomacy. And what that means is basically diplomacy from just people to people and, interpersonal connections, as opposed to, for example, like political or governmental connections. And the ability to really connect with other people just in person and person to person really ensures that you have it helps you have a more holistic picture and kind of a holistic understanding of everyone involved. And in some ways it's a little sentimental. It gets you kind of thinking about other people as individuals and not just parties involved. But I think that really if you look at things through interpersonal diplomacy, which is something that I guess kind of sports diplomacy is intertwined with. I think that's really just a foundational thing that you can rely on to make sure that you're not really leaving anyone behind.
Yeah, thank you. I think we could definitely do with some more interpersonal diplomacy around the world right now.
All right.
Back to Peter.
Okay. Now I know we got just 6 more minutes. Now I'm just trying to think like really quick here. Who else want to go? The last person who will like take us home and this overall. I know we'll have more conversations. This was a start. One big part of technology. Look at how we are gathering. Somebody's in US, somebody's in UK, we are in Kenya, and we are doing all sorts of things. So go for it. The last person, we are the last person. Obviously, we'll have our call to action.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm from San Diego, California. And my favorite sport is hockey. I really like watching it. My goal that I chose was number 13, like the climate, because that's the basis of what we live on Earth. And to achieve all the other goals, we need to keep our planet clean, and fossil fuels and gases in the atmosphere that are harming it is not going to help us achieve these goals that are very important. And with the rise of AI, that's something I'm very passionate about, that are, harming communities that are already in poverty by adding their systems and using water to cool their systems and raising the power bill, but also just harming the earth. I think it's really important that we, use our voices to communicate with politicians and people who have the resources, but also the accessibility to change that, because it's super. I wouldn't say easy, but it's plausible to change that, but they're using the resources to do something that is harming the earth because it's cheaper, or because the labor will cost less. So I think people like politicians, CEOs, and billionaires that are harming the earth really need to step in and change that and use their resources. It doesn't matter that it's more expensive, but there will not be there won't be water left. There won't be an earth left to make more money on. So that's something I'm passionate about.
Really deep explanation about the relevance of our environment, where we all live. If we do not protect that, Leslie and Claire and anybody in this room, then we might not have anywhere to live. So thank you there for sharing. So any counter scorecard on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that was a really beautifully put summation of the problem that we face with the climate, and at a time when the reports that have come out over the last few weeks show that we are dangerously close to the point of no return with this. And it's why we have faith in young people, because you see the urgency and you hopefully will be leading the charge. But we need those people that are in power now, those that hold power, that hold the resources, because we see that the climate issue is disproportionately affecting those that are already disadvantaged. But the question to you is, what would it take for people to treat climate change as urgent, for all people to treat climate change as urgent?
I think protesting is something that is really effective, since there was a protest recently.
Put the mic closer to you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think protesting is something to show that we are serious about this. There was a protest recently, I believe on Monday, after we left. Also just, education is something that's really important to teach our future generation about, that, to show that we are at a tipping point for this, and something and there is no return after we use up all of these resources that Earth has. Also, just calling into your local senator, the governor. You have a voice, and voting is something that you can do. Yeah.
Right. So there is more an explanation about the education, the leaders playing their part to ensure that the climate issues are dealt with urgently, if you see what I mean. Just a few more minutes to end this, but I know, because you mentioned climate and the tournament we are planning together, by the way, I didn't say this, But we have one major tournament coming up in May during the World Football Week. We are partnering with myself, my chosen vessels, Wonderfuture, and obviously I come from Global Youth Forum, where we bring 34 teams, 17 male, 17 female. They play for this SDG. They come up with an initiative that deliver impact to ensure the sustainability of all these things you are talking about. So for every goal scored, how many goals did we score during those targets? We can't. Team 1 scored 8. Okay. So for every goal you guys scored, I don't know how you will do it, but just ensure you plant 3 trees, fruit trees, somewhere. For any goal we scored in any game we play, we ensure that we score 3 fruit trees for every goal. So I just wanted to put that in. But the final one, before I bring team to wind us up and to show us probably what we might even figure out in future, what gives young people hope? I know all of you sat over there, except who is not old here? Who is not a youth here? Anyway, what gives youth hope? That is you. What do you think gives you hope? Unless every person can actually get the mic and just do 5 seconds each. What gives you hope? Let's start. Take the mic, tell us what gives you hope, and you pass the mic on. What gives you hope?
Personally, I think I gain a lot of hope when I see that institutions actually listen to me. Like when I want to have my voice heard, it is actually heard instead of ignored. So I know that whatever impact I want to have, it can have an effect. But also, I think people supporting my projects, people giving me the support and love to really go for my idea, that really gives me hope that our generation really can help solve some issues in this world for the future.
There we go. Pass it on. Yeah, let it flow. Let it flow.
I'm always given hope by the rare instances where we see effective communication between two parties, specifically political parties that might be pretty polarized, which I think, while that is what gives me hope, I think a lot of us would agree that it's not something we see a lot nowadays. So it is uncommon, but when it does happen, it's always inspiring.
All right. 2 divides coming together.
I think the biggest hope for me is that the things I do now will impact the life I would live in the future, and I will impact the future generations. So I gain a lot of hope that I have a big impact in what I can do and what I can change for the future.
Right.
Yeah. I think seeing your goals actively, making progress and seeing progress throughout those is really important. And in the future, I want to go into pediatrics and help people and help with medicine. And so I think knowing that the goals and the things that I work towards will eventually help a bunch of people is really exciting, and that provides hope.
What really provides hope for me is seeing everyone around me, all of my friends, the community here who are out here trying to create change, and knowing that so many of us, whether we want to go into medicine, engineering, any field, right, that we all want to do something for the world. So to see the efforts of everyone around me gives me hope.
As being the older person sitting here, what gives me hope is that they are so passionate with what they want to do independently, but that passion altogether is what would bring the change.
I think for me, it's pretty simple. I think simple acts of kindness really give me hope. Helping others without really expecting anything in return. I think that really uplifts people in so many different scales.
For me personally, I think I get a lot of hope when I see how like certain small victories can be like scaled up in bigger contexts. So when I see how like smaller things can translate to bigger outcomes, that kind of gives me hope that bigger institutional issues can be tackled through like smaller victories, but in the end are overall possible.
Seeing that what we physically do actually has a long-standing impact, and I think like the fact that those miniatas over there were built by students, and seeing that has been accumulated in something we can actually live in is a small example of that.
Oh my goodness. Something that gives me hope is just knowing that there's like a lot of good people out there in the world who still believe in the cause.
I think that'd be
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
We lost the sound again.
Yeah, let's try one more. Mother, pass the other mic. So let's try one more time. Okay. So we are talking about what gives young people hope as we wind up the session today. I think we got 5 more minutes. Yeah, carry on. Are you able to hear her?
Yes, we can. I can hear you, Peter.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's it.
The thing that gives me hope is that the younger generation is very adamant on working together and fixing the problems that we see, and the resistance towards the older things that don't seem to be working.
Right.
Again, as many other people have said, what brings me hope is seeing that our actions have any kind of positive change, whether that be one woman gaining access to education through water access or seeing the growth of the center. Again, just seeing that our actions have any kind of positive change gives me hope that it can snowball into something larger.
Right.
What gives me hope is when other people who may be more fortunate or who may have more resources are willing to help, no matter, what the compensation, what they will get in return. And I feel even in my local community that inspires people to continue moving and continue reaching their goals.
What gives me hope is when two different groups or communities are coming together to solve different problems and having something in common, which is just to work together to solve the things that they in the world that attention and more support.
Right. Do we have any more person like you guys want to give it a go? What gives you hope? Right here. We are in Maasai community, and if Maasai community doesn't speak, then they might not be as hopeful as we might think. We want them also to have hope. So yeah, go for it, guys. Grab the mic. What gives you hope? Yeah. Have you passed the mic? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, what give us hope is education. By education actually eradicate the language barrier that bring people to interact with other people from around the world. So for me, it's education. Thank you.
All right. So Leslie and Claire, and I know Elizabeth is joining us. Elizabeth loves basketball. So if you do love basketball, we'd love to connect you with Elizabeth. But now as we wind up, Leslie or Claire, I don't know if you have something, and then we can bring Tim to bring us home. And then we can have our call to action in the next 3 minutes. So Tim, grab a mic. You want to pass Tim mic? So Tim, who is coming? Tim is from My Chosen Vessel. You can have a seat anywhere there. Tim will tell us his views. Maybe if he wants us to do more of these things, Tim. So maybe this is just a stop.
Yeah,
so over to you, Tim.
The hope is I know that at Canyon Crest that we as sister schools with the Maasai, that this is a conversation that we can continue because we have the technology. There's no reason for us not to. This is not a one-off. This is going to be a continued conversation. I also know this. We have the ability to not just connect here. The only thing that's going to stop us is time zones. That's nothing. We can figure that out. That's math. We'll make it work. So this is the beginning.
Right. So the team have spoken. The students now are very hopeful. My call to action would be, as we wind this up. No, I don't want to wind it up. Leslie and Claire, we can start with Claire. Your parting shot and your closing remarks, and then I will have the final word, and my team will stand behind me, joining me on my final word. So any one of you can give our parting shot and your closing thoughts before we close it. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Anyone there, or else I'll jump in?
Jump in.
Okay. So what I've heard from all of you today gives me hope, because you're seeing the things that are important in life: sanitation, water, education, finding routes to solving problems. And that gives me hope that with all of the problems that we see in the world, that there is real potential to build a different future, a more hopeful future, one with more equality and less barriers to people. And Tim's comments there about this is just the beginning of the conversation is how we like to end every Lunch for Democracy, because through the power of technology, through you continuing to question and talk to each other, this conversation continues, and the conversation becomes ideas, becomes power, becomes policy, becomes the future. And so that would be it, really. You are the hope, and this is just the beginning. And thank you very much for your contributions today.
Peter, can I build on that?
Yeah, go for it, Leslie.
So echo everything that Claire has said, and just two other things. Listening to what you were saying, and I was trying to write everything down as you were speaking, but there were two things that stood out for me because they're not about money. They're not about money creating solutions. One was it's simple acts of kindness, which we can all do. And the other one was when two different communities come together to solve problems, they can find something in common. And so that goes back to what Claire was talking about earlier, and you were talking about around trust. And I do think that fundamentally, if you have kindness and trust, there is a huge amount that you can do. And someone else said, you can make the small change individually, but when individuals come together, they can create huge change. And so what gives me hope is hearing from all of you and the changes that you're already doing, that you're already thinking about doing, and knowing that they will come into fruition, and that every single one of you there that we can see on this screen is making a difference now and will be making huge differences going forward. So I've just appreciated this opportunity to share space with you and to hear your thoughts about what could be a very optimistic future for us all. Back to you, Peter.
Exciting. So we never leave the students behind. What is your parting shot? Any confident student, grab the mic, tell us your parting shot. Any student, like we call that the president or the team leader. Who wants to grab the mic? Yeah.
Concluding thoughts.
Sure. I think that the activity that we completed today overall was incredibly effective. I appreciated how it not only gave us the chance to connect with people our age in Kenya, but it also taught us all valuable lessons about the necessary values for democracy to be an effective solution. I thought it was great.
Okay, I see two hands, so Ethan is going.
And I also just want to emphasize, like, on top of the activity, like moments like these where we sit down and reflect is like very important to making sure that the things we learn kind of stay with us and stay within our hearts. And so I just want to thank you for, I guess, sitting down with us and having this moment with us.
All right. So this has been the Sports4Democracy Forum, and the next call to action will be we can start. This will be the inaugural community. So we can, I know all of you are on WhatsApp. You guys join the community, and when you get back to San Diego, we get people from South Africa, to Uganda, to TZ, from across the globe, and we take the conversation to the next level. With that, we end Sports4Democracy Forum 2026 in Kajiado County, and we look forward to seeing you probably before next year. Thank you, and we hope to connect very soon.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much.